14th Dalai Lama turns 90 on July 6, 2025, the world watches closely to see how his successor will be chosen. Revered globally for his teaching of peace and compassion, the Dalai Lama is more than a spiritual leader. He is a symbol of Tibetan identity. Dalai Lamas have played a dominant role in Tibetan politics in addition to their spiritual leadership. They or their regents governed much of the Tibetan plateaus with varying degrees of autonomy from the 17th century until the China occupied Tibet in 1950. So let's understand the process of choosing Dalai Lama, the political, religious and the spiritual significance it holds, and what comes next when he can no longer lead. But before that, let's find out how the current Dalai Lama was chosen. According to the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Dalai Lama is the reincarnation of the past spiritual leader. The 14th Dalai Lama, born in 1935, was recognized as the reincarnation of the 13th Lama at just the age of 2. A search party guided by visionaries and the sacred science confirmed his identity when the young child identified the preceder's belonging, saying, "It's mine, it's mine." He was officially enthroned in 1940, becoming the spiritual head of Tibetan Buddhism. In Tibetan Buddhist belief, a Dalai Lama is the reincarnation of a long line of the entitled beings who have chosen to be reborn to serve the humanity. The process for identifying his successor is complex and deeply spiritual. After a Dalai Lama passes away, senior lamas and the monks look for spiritual signs like visions, dreams, and an unusual phenomena is taken place to guide them to the location of the new reincarnation. Monks are dispatched across Tibet and sometimes beyond to find the young children born around the time of the previous Dalai Lama's death, believed to show signs of being the reincarnation. Dreams play an important role. Those involved in the search for the Dalai Lama's reincarnation often meditate at Lamola Taso, an oracle lake in central Tibet, and wait for a vision or insight into the whereabouts of the Dalai Lama's rebirth. Candidates are given objects to identify, including items belonging to the previous Dalai Lama. If a child picks the correct ones and displays exceptional insight, they are believed to be the new reincarnation. The child is then trained in Buddhist philosophy and gradually takes on a religious role, culminating in environment as the new Dalai Lama. In his 2025 book, Voice for Voiceless, the Dalai Lama revealed that his successor will not be born in China. He has lived in exile in India since 1959 and has established clear guidelines for the succession process. His foundation, the Garden Pondrung Foundation, will oversee the identification and recognition of the next Dalai Lama. The Tibetan Parliament in exile, based in Dharamshala, supports this process to ensure continuity of the spiritual leadership outside the Chinese control. China's stance on Dalai Lama's rebirth. China insists that it has the final say in choosing the Dalai Lama's successor, citing the historical practices from the Qing dynasty, including a lottery ritual using a golden yuan. However, this method of choosing the Dalai Lama is criticized by the Tibetan Buddhist. The Dalai Lama himself has urged followers to reject any candidate selected by the Chinese government, stating that communist authorities who deny religion should not interfere in the sacred Tibetan traditions.
If it is about Lama's reincarnation, when all the followers have unanimously said that the reincarnation should continue, then it is obvious that it will come. Since my 24th of September 2011 statement, which states that responsibility for doing so will rest exclusively with members of the Gadang Phodrang Trust, the office of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. They should consult the various heads of the Tibetan Buddhist traditions and the reliable oath-bound dharma protectors who are linked inseparably to the lineage of the Dalai Lamas. They should accordingly carry out the procedures of search and recognition in accordance with past tradition. I hereby reiterate that the Gadang Phodrang Trust has sole authority to recognize the future reincarnation. No one else has any such authority to interfere in this matter.
Succession has long been a point of friction between the Dalai Lama and the Beijing. They identify different young boys for another significant spiritual role, the Panchim Lama, the second highest figure in Tibetan Buddhism. The religious head chose a 6-year-old who was detained by the Chinese officials in 1995 and hasn't been seen yet. Meanwhile, the Panchim Lama, pitched by Beijing, pleaded adherence to the party during a rare face-to-face meeting with President Xi Jinping in January. Beijing brands the Dalai Lama as a separatist and has banned his image and teachings with Tibet. In contrast, his peaceful struggle for Tibetan autonomy earned him the Nobel Prize in 1989. The reincarnation debate is more than spiritual. It has a serious geopolitical implication. China wants the next Dalai Lama to be under its control, which may see as a move of legitimize its authority over Tibet. China is determined to shape the narrative around this succession to prevent the erosion of its grip on Tibet, a mountainous region that is axed by the Chinese government in 1950. At the time, the Dalai Lama was forced to flee in disguise, dressing in Chinese uniform and escaping on foot with family members and some ministers to India, where they settled as refugees. He established a government in exile in northern city of Dharamshala, which has advocated for greater freedom for their homeland. India's decision to continue to host the 89-year-old remains one of the most enduring sources of tensions between Delhi and Beijing. Role of India and the United States. India is home to over 1 lakh Tibetan exiles, including the Dalai Lama. His presence in India serves as a soft power tool in India-China relations. Indian citizens and leaders widely respect him, giving New Delhi a unique stake in the succession debate. The United States has openly backed the Tibetan autonomy and opposes China's interference in the succession. In 2024, the President Joe Biden signed a law stating that and supporting the Tibetan rights to choose their religious leaders without Chinese influence. A spiritual leader with global impact. The next Dalai Lama will not just guide Tibetan Buddhists, his influence will reach across borders. As discussions unfold, the world will be watching to see whether the sacred tradition of reincarnation can withstand modern political pressure.